I'm Ethan Rackers, and it is November 14th, 2019, and we are at Elias Catholic High School in Jefferson City, Missouri. So what is your last name, and can you spell that out?
Schellman, S-C-H-E-L-L-M-A-N.
And your middle name and your first name and middle initial?
Gilbert. Middle initial is Henry.
So when and where were you born?
I was born May the 20th, 1941 at St. Mary's Hospital at Jefferson City, Missouri.
And did you attend high school, and where?
Right here, Elias High School in 1956.
Is that what year you graduated?
1959.
1959. When you were in high school, did you ever think that you were going to join the military?
Not at all.
Not at all. So what year did you enlist with National Guard?
1963.
Was there anyone that had a major impact on why you enlisted?
Not really. Probably my cousin. He was in the Marines for a couple of years, and I was always pretty enthused when he came home and told me about what he did in San Diego, California, in his training.
Yeah. So was he older than you?
Yeah, he was five years older.
So what are the names of your parents, and did they have any influence on why you joined the military?
Not really. You want the name of him?
Sure, if you want to share.
My dad's name was Anthony, or Tony they called him, and my mother was Ida Schellman, both of them, last name.
So did any of your other siblings serve in the military?
Yes. Both of my brothers in the National Guard. I was in the National Guard for 6 years. My brother Dick was in the National Guard for 6 years, but my brother was in the Guard for 20 plus years. He just retired about 10 years ago.
And what exactly was he for the Guard?
What?
He was a cook for the Guard?
Yeah. He wasn't cook most of the time.
So about what age were you whenever you first considered joining the military? Whenever it first crossed your mind?
About the time I enlisted, when I was about 21 years old.
21. Did your family have any reaction to you joining the service?
No, not really. My mother was always worried something might happen to me.
Yeah. What would you say intrigued you the most about joining the military? Intrigued you the most, like what really made you want to?
Well, at that time we had an enlistment program. You would get drafted if you waited to a certain age. If you wouldn't enlist, you would naturally get drafted.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, well, why wait it out to be drafted? It might be 1, 2, 3, 4 more years. So I had two good buddies of mine and myself. We all three joined at the same time. We all three joined in 1963, and we spent 6 years at Fort Leonard Wood in basic training.
So how'd you like it down there at Fort Leonard Wood?
Well, not the best, but it was close to home.
Yeah. How long would you go down there for, like, at a time before you got to come back home again?
Well, we had basic training. I guess it was for 10 or 12 weeks. We couldn't come home for leave then. But while we were at basic training, we got caught with when the President Kennedy got assassinated, and we couldn't leave post then, and didn't really know what could happen. So we waited that out, and it was quite an experience. And from what everybody's seen around here, all the TV, all the social media, what you see on TV, we didn't hardly see any of that at Fort Leonard Wood.
Oh yeah.
There was very few TVs.
So was the U.S. at war whenever you joined the military?
Not really. The Cuban War was over, but
What year did that end?
I want to say 1960. I really don't know for sure. I haven't got it on top of my head. But really, the Vietnam War was going on at that time, but it wasn't near as critical as it was 10 or 15 years later. It got to be much more critical.
So did the Vietnam War have any, did that affect why you joined?
Not really. We were pretty lucky during my time while I was at Fort Underwood for 6 months. Then when we came back here, there was other activity, and I'll mention later probably if you ask me more questions.
Okay. So you never got, it was never a possibility that you got called overseas for Vietnam War or anything?
Not really, no. No one in our unit was called overseas at all.
So whenever you would go down to Fort Leonard Wood, and did you, you said you went to Minnesota, some camps up there, didn't you?
Yeah, when I first joined the National Guard, it's a 6-year commitment, like I said earlier, 6 months in a basic training. But then every Tuesday we had drill, every Tuesday night. Then after about 2 years, they changed it from every Tuesday night to 1 weekend of a month, and that's still the procedure. If you're in the National Guard, you drill 1 weekend of a month, plus 2 weeks you go to summer camp. And in my 6 years, we went to summer camp one time at Nevada, Missouri, Camp Chowder, I think it was at Nevada, and then the other 5 years we went to Camp Ripley, Minnesota, for 2 weeks summer camp.
Is that where did you say that you went before Camp Ripley?
In Nevada, Missouri.
Was that your first year you went there?
Probably, but my first year.
So how'd you like it in Minnesota?
Good. It was a nice camp. Kind of cool, even in the month of July.
Yeah, that was probably better than the hot
The land of the sky blue water, the land of 10,000 lakes.
So was it tough leaving your family to go up there, or just?
No, not really, because you know what was expected of you. We go up with a convoy, army trucks.
Oh yeah.
Probably took 24 hours to get there.
How many men would go up, like whenever you went up with them?
Ooh, at least 100.
So what type of training did you receive at the camp in Nevada, Missouri, and in Minnesota?
Well, when I was in basic training, my MOS was a engineer communications at Fort Leonard Wood.
Oh.
But then when I was back here at Jefferson City, they switched. They didn't have an engineer group or communication group. I was in the state headquarters, which most of us worked out of a motor pool down here on Industrial Drive. We were mechanics, and we fixed up vehicles for all over the state of Missouri, really.
So were you involved in that all 6 years that you were in the Guard?
Yes, all 6 years here in Jeff City.
Did you like that, or would you ever other done something different for them?
Well, we didn't have much of a choice. That's just what it was here in Jeff City.
Yeah.
If you wanted to be an MP, military police, you had to go to Fulton. They had military police, but all we had here in Jeff City was mechanics. And they had a big garage down here, Industrial Drive. They fixed vehicles for the whole state.
Is it still up there on Industrial Drive?
Yeah. Well, not too much of it. Most of it has been transferred over Militia Drive.
Oh yeah.
Over in East End, most of it now. That's where the National Guard home base is at.
So would you say that your training at your camps was like pretty physically hard?
Oh yeah, we went out on bivouac. We had to do our on the rifle range and do a lot of physical exercise.
Did you enjoy that?
Oh yeah, you had to stay in shape all year long.
Yeah.
You had PE tests to take quite often, and your rifle range and all different things. You had to keep your rifles clean. You was assigned a certain rifle, M1, 15, and it was pretty interesting. And you had drill sergeants.
What would you say your favorite part and your least favorite part about training would be? What did you really enjoy the most, and what did you dislike about it?
That's a good question. I didn't like rifle range too much. Well, at Fort Leonard Wood, it was pretty tough out in the field. Fort Leonard Wood is a pretty rough range. You had a lot to do out there. Dig your foxholes and had your rifle range and everything else. It was kind of rough down in Fort Leonard Wood.
A lot of labor down there.
Oh yeah, yeah. And your drill sergeants was pretty tough. It was full-time Army people. They were
Oh, yeah.
they were pretty tough. They were pretty tough on you. And up here in Jeff City, after the basic training, it was not near as complicated. But you still had tests to take all the time on different things. But I had it pretty easy, really. In my 5.5 years, I was pretty fortunate to be assigned to a pretty good company.
So how long did your basic training last? Whatever year.
6 months
6 years.
at Fort Wood.
So that was your first 6 months, and then after that you're in another 5.5
Right,
after that?
another 5.5 years here.
Do you remember where you were first stationed after your basic training?
Here in Jeff City.
No. So were you stationed anywhere else besides this?
No, I was
Here
here
the whole time.
I was in, all the time. I was in Fort Leonard Wood for a full 6 months. Basic training was 8 or 10 weeks. But then after that, I was in communications, climbed telephone poles,
Oh yeah.
and things like that.
How'd you like that?
Not too well. I didn't like height, but I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
They just tell you what you do, and that was it.
So whenever you were in your basic training in your MOS, did you have any special mentor that you looked up to? Anyone of your good buddies or anything? Just
Guys, I made friends who was in our battalion, not our company.
Oh yeah. So, do you are you still able to use any of the skills that you learned in your basic training? Do you use any of those like on a daily basis or?
Yeah, I'm
just
pretty good
ever?
shape. Physical, I'm pretty good shape.
Yeah. Any particular skills that you remember learning in training that like you don't think that you would have otherwise? Like think you'd ever climb those telephone poles? If it wasn't for training.
I don't climb telephone poles, I don't climb trees.
Was there?
Communications were a lot different back then than what it is now. You know, now communications is with the social media and with the computer and everything, it'd be a lot different.
From your time in service, could you recall 4 or 5 things that you could still picture pretty vividly in your head? Events that happened or anything? Anything that really sticks out to you?
Well, if you, during basic training, go out on the range and solve a lot of problems and make contact with different people, and the drills you had, something you never forget.
Yeah.
It's mostly physical. And then later on, the other 5.5 years here in Jeff City, we helped quite a few convoys go into different places, and then we furnished the trucks, the great big deuce and a half. If you had to drive 50, 100 miles on the back of a deuce and a half, it wasn't too much fun. But and the trucks broke down sometimes. And we always had a wrecker to pull one in or fix one on the way. So tires weren't as good those days as they are now. We had quite a few flat tires on the Jeeps, but the National Guard kept them up in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
We had a fleet. We had a good, what they call motor pool. We had a real good crew in our motor pool, and well, you know, you learn a lot if you've never been around vehicles, how to fix engines and the regular maintenance on Jeeps, change oil and grease job and all things like that.
So would you do a lot of that?
Oh, yeah.
Maintenance on vehicles?
That was our job. What they call first echelon maintenance. We wouldn't rebuild the engine or nothing like that, but first echelon, that's grease job, oil change, filter, tire
Just keep
pressure.
them maintained.
Yeah, just maintain. It's good to learn, because a lot of times if you don't do nothing like that, you don't realize what you have to do when you own your own car.
So what did you say that your highest rank was that you got to?
E6,
E6.
enlisted, I was no officer.
Okay.
You start out with a private,
Mm-hmm.
and then you went to sergeant first class, E5. Then after you're in there about
So the sergeant first class is the
E5.
the same thing.
Yeah, then I got one rank higher, and then I had a choice to stay in or get out. So I got out. It was a big mistake probably, I should have probably stayed in.
Yeah.
Made a good career out of it.
You
Right now, the National Guard are involved a lot more in the whole world, in the full-time Army, a lot more now than they ever have been before.
if you could do it again, you think you would have stayed in?
Absolutely.
So was it difficult to get to the rank E6?
No,
or-
not really. Just the amount of time, you just had to serve amount of time to do it.
Oh, okay.
It has to be a slot open, and I guess the slot was to be open for E6.
Um, so did you receive any sort of advanced training after your basic training that you remember?
Not really. We had a physical take every year, but not too much.
Let's see here. So, as you were National Guard, that was a part-time job, or on Tuesdays you said, and then they switched to every weekend with 2 months of training. What was your other job in the meantime?
Yeah, see, it's not a full-time job. You had to have a different job in civilian life. And I was a meat cutter in a grocery store, and they knew every year in summer I would have to take off for 2 weeks. I could either take leave or lose pay or whatever. In those days, they weren't too over the phone about you being in the National Guard, have to be gone for 2 weeks, but it's a lot different nowadays because they very lenient with that. That was almost expected nowadays, but back then it wasn't. It wasn't too easy to get off, but they knew you had to. I'm almost saying, my own opinion is a few people wouldn't hire you if you worked in the Guard, because you had to get out one weekend every month. And
So,
it didn't work out too good with my job, but I made it work.
so you said that if you could do it again, you wish that you would have stayed in the Guard longer?
Well, yeah, it's a good retirement. It's good pay. It would have been a good job, but
You wish that you would have done it full-time or just kept the same
no,
thing that you had going?
full time.
What do you think that your role would have been like if you had gone full-time?
Oh, probably sergeant major. That's about as high as you can get without being an officer. I was an E6, and you go to E7, and then E8, and E9. That's the max.
Is the E9 the sergeant major?
Sergeant major, yeah. Take quite a while to get there.
So, you think that, would you have still had to attend the same types of basic
Oh yeah,
training? And,
oh yeah. You still have to go to summer camp every year.
So the role that you were given whenever you first joined the military, were you satisfied with that, or do you wish that you would have had a chance to try something else
I
out?
would like to have a chance for something else. That wasn't my favorite, but
Yeah. What else do you like? What do you have in mind?
oh, I don't know. You don't have a choice. You take a test and.
Like what other roles do you like wish that you would have had, or like, if you could have picked?
I truly can't remember what the choices would have been at that time, but it wasn't that big. It wasn't that big a field, really. Like it'd be a lot bigger field now, I'm sure. If you could probably have a choice now. It probably changed so much over the years. Those days you enlisted and that was it. And they just told you what was available and that was it.
You have any like mental characteristics that you think still stick with you from the service today?
No, not really.
Think it improved your work ethic at all?
Absolutely.
Or anything like that?
Absolutely, yeah. It's good experience. It's good discipline, and to follow orders and do the job right. They were particularly had to do the job right. Your clothing and everything had to be just exactly right. Polish your boots and everything like that, you know, just, it had to be respectful.
Detail?
Oh, yeah.
So you said earlier that you and a few of your friends joined the service. Can you give us some background on your friends that you joined with? How did you know them?
They were two good friends of mine. We were pretty fortunate that we were able to join at the same time and also stay at Fort Leonard Wood at the same time. And they both passed away now. I've been very fortunate. I was blessed with good health, but we got to come home on weekends quite often. Later on, the 4th or 5th or 6th month of basic training, we got to come home on weekend passes sometime. It might only be for 24 hours, but since we lived so close to Fort Leonard Wood, we got to come home several times on the weekend pass. And then when we got the other 5.5 years, we were in the same unit here in Jeff City too. So not very often are you that lucky to be in with 2 or 3 of your good friends and stay in there with them for almost 6 years.
Yeah. So did they serve like about the same time that you did, 6 years?
Exactly.
How'd you know them? Did you grow up with them or go
Grew
to
up
school with
with
them?
Classmates. Both of them was 1 year older than I was. They were both 23, I guess, and I was 22, or they were 22 and I was 21.
That was whenever you guys joined?
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. So were their roles pretty much the same as yours? For
Yeah.
You guys?
Yeah.
You all had the same roles? You got any memories from your time in service that you're thankful for?
Not really. I mean, I can remember my family coming down to visit me when we had graduations from basic training. Our family came down and visited us. It was like a couple weeks after President Kennedy got assassinated.
Did you say that whenever you got called up to Kansas City, can you give us a little background on that?
Well, in 1968, I think it was, Martin Luther King got assassinated, and we were called to Kansas City. We were on standby, and we were in an office building in Kansas City. We camped out there in the office building. It was in state headquarters, and we was on alert in case they have a big riot in Kansas City. We was pretty close to where they thought they might riot, and we were on standby. If anything would have happened, we would have been called out if riots would have took place, and it wasn't. It was pretty peaceful in Kansas City. Some parts of the country they had riots, but
So you guys were basically just on standby the entire time?
just on standby, yeah. And like I said, I was with communications then, and a lot of the work was done with officers in the offices, and we were just standby.
So whenever you say that you were with communications, like what do you mean by that? What was your role for them?
Well, they checked with other guard units in St. Joe, Kansas City, Springfield, everywhere else, and everybody was pretty much on standby in case it would have been a real major outbreak in the state with violence.
Mm-hmm. How long were you guys up there on standby?
You know, I really don't know, but I think almost 2 weeks.
2 weeks. So for your communications, was your job to just contact the what's the word I'm looking for? Other guys basically, and see if they were having any trouble or if they got.
Yeah, you had to have all your rifles inspected and make sure they were all working. We had an inspection almost every day or so with our rifles to make sure everything was okay. And Um, I can't remember exactly what we all did, but they kept us busy.
Did you ever have to do any work like around this area here for the?
Like a flood or something like that?
Yeah.
No. There was a flood here in the late sixties, but the National Guard wasn't called out like it is now. The National Guard is called out now a lot easier than what they were
Yeah.
back then.
So they didn't really call you guys out for much unless it was a big deal.
No, we never did get called out on the flood.
Huh.
Well, now you do quite often, pretty easily.
Is there anything that you want to show us in your book or the pictures that you brought?
Well, this is the book from basic training right there. And I can still remember quite a few of them. And this is a picture here of basic training at Fort Leonard Wood.
Okay.
I can still remember our drill sergeant there.
Oh yeah.
He's pretty tough.
Yeah.
And then all three of these are different summer camps.
So that one there was taken in Minnesota?
No, Fort Leonard Wood.
No, that one that's
Oh, yeah,
that was
yeah.
in Minnesota.
That was in Minnesota. This was in Minnesota. The guys in the white. The only one there. No, there's three of them. They were the cooks in the
Oh.
white. And here again, that's old me there. Looked a lot different 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And that was our, see it says Camp Ripon, Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
And that's my honorable discharge certificate.
Is that, when do you get that? Is that whenever?
Whenever we finish our 6 years.
Oh, okay.
And this is Department of Army Basic Training Certificate, Communications Engineering. That's it, and this was our whole complete book of basic training, see, bayonet training, fire line.
So would you have to go through each one of those individually?
Oh, yeah.
You guys, so you'd have your bayonet training and then a different time you'd have your train fire.
Bayonet. Combat, close combat, marches, bivouac.
Are all those guys, would that be your platoon?
Yeah,
All those are,
yeah.
Huh.
Quite a few of them.
you remember how many guys exactly were in your platoon?
Well, probably 150.
Oh, yeah.
That's my favorite man right there. He was a mess sergeant.
Who was he?
Sergeant Roberts.
Oh.
He was a mess sergeant. He gave us good food. We actually had good food. In cold weather, we'd go out there and we wash our containers in these little metal trash cans. Can you believe how sanitary that was?
Yeah.
But we had training in November. It was pretty cold.
Yeah. Did you like the training in November or training in the summer better?
I believe November might be better. Summer would be pretty rough,
Yeah, that'd be.
especially 400 wood.
Is there anything else that you think we should know?
My own mind don't work that good from what happened 50 years ago, but
You said that your brothers were in service also?
yeah.
How long were each one of them in for?
Well, Dick was just like me, only for 6 years. But Bob, he re-enlisted. He stayed for over 20 years.
So did you and Dick pretty much have the same roles? What you guys did?
I really don't know. He was 10 years younger than I am, Dick was. But Bob is 3 years younger, but Bob always worked in the kitchen. He was always a mess sergeant. He was a main cook. And he was, I think he was in cook at Fort Leonard Wood, then he was a cook here in Jeff City for over 20 years, and he enjoyed that.
So he was a cook for all 20 years?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, was?
He got called up during Desert Storm, and see, I was out of it when Desert Storm was already.
You remember what year that was? Is that in this?
Probably about 1970 maybe.
Okay.
I think early 70s. He got called out to Camp Ripley, no, not Camp Ripley,
So did,
somewhere in Kansas.
oh yeah. So did he go overseas then?
No, he never. He was called up on standby, and he got called to Kansas. But he stayed about another 5 years, and he got out. And I don't remember what rank he was either, but he was probably E6 or E7.
So would your cooks at the camp, would let you go through all the training that you guys went through also?
Oh yeah,
They would.
pretty much. Some of them not quite as thorough, but
But they would, they do all the physical,
oh yeah.
um,
A lot of tests about like going to high school.
yeah. Do you like those?
Okay.
What would you like people to know or remember from your story? Anything special that you did?
Just military is a good experience. I think it's good for anybody to go in the military. It's a different type of training, especially discipline.
Yeah.
That's like why Elias High School is so good. It's very disciplined here, you know. It's your training is not lax like it is a lot of different places. And the Army is good training. There's a lot of it might not be necessary, but sooner or later, it's been a good experience to know.
So you think that the discipline that you're taught and the guard helped you in other aspects of your life too?
Absolutely, yeah, sure.
That's good.
Anytime you learn something is a plus.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Think that there's anything in your 6 years that we haven't covered?
I can't think of anything. I probably should have made me some notes before I got here, but
So about your uniforms that you guys wore, can you tell us a little bit about those? Like, how many sets of uniforms are you given?
best I remember, one dress uniform. That's when you went into parade or something, a dress uniform. Then your army regular fatigues, you had like 4 or 5 sets.
And that's what you would do all your laboring?
And you had to be, when you was first issued your uniforms,